There is a point in every man's life when he discovers something dangerous about himself. Not his anger, not his ambition, but his calm. The moment when he stops reacting and starts observing. When he speaks less and notices more. When confidence stops being loud and becomes cold. That is the moment people begin to fear you. Because cold confidence cannot be rushed, manipulated, or provoked. It's the one form of strength the world has no defense against. Power begins when you no longer need permission to exist. There is a law beneath all power games, and Machiavelli hinted at it long before psychology found the words. The man who is unfazed controls the man who is uncertain. The steady mind governs the restless one. Presence defeats performance. Cold confidence is not bravado. It is not charm. It is not enthusiasm. It is control. Control over your impulses. Control over your reactions. Control over the meaning you give to any moment. People fear what they cannot predict. And nothing is more unpredictable than a person who stays composed in situations that break everyone else. Cold confidence is the art of being immovable in a world that trembles. To understand this psychology, you must see how human behavior bends around certainty. In business, the calm negotiator dictates the terms, not because he shouts, but because he refuses to be pulled into emotional traps. He allows silence to stretch, and the other side panics first. In relationships, emotional steadiness creates gravity. People push boundaries to see if you break. When you don't, the dynamic shifts. Respect replaces doubt. Clarity replaces noise. In social life, the one who stays anchored becomes the reference point. People subtly follow the rhythm of the most stable presence in the room. Every group unconsciously seeks a center of gravity. Cold confidence makes you that center. This is why the world tries to keep you reactive. A reactive man is a predictable man, and a predictable man is easy to control. The calm man becomes the strategist. The frantic man becomes the pawn. Cold confidence is not a performance. It's a state of mind. A fortress built from clarity, not arrogance. A discipline of perception, not indifference. This is why the weak misunderstand it. They believe coldness is cruelty. They believe calmness is suppression. They believe reserve is insecurity. But cold confidence is not the absence of emotion. It is the mastery of it. The loud use emotion as a weapon. The strong use restraint. The weak rely on reactions. The strong rely on intention. When you stop leaking emotional energy into every moment, you reclaim the power that was always yours. Cold confidence is the art of focusing on what matters and discarding everything else. Cold confidence is built in layers, and each layer rewrites the way people interpret you long before you speak. The first layer is perception, the oldest battlefield of human behavior. People judge you before they understand you. They look for signals, cracks, openings. They don't listen to your explanations. They watch your reactions. Your reactions betray the story you try to hide. If your face collapses under pressure, even for a moment, they register weakness. If your jaw tightens, if your eyes shift, if your breath stumbles, they learn that stress bends you. You don't have to say a word. Your body speaks first. When your tone rises while you defend yourself, they don't hear confidence, they hear urgency. Urgency sounds like fear. Fear sounds like submission. And submission invites pressure. The moment you sound unsettled, even slightly, you teach them how to shake you again. Your body betrays you faster than your voice. A stiff shoulder, a restless hand, a forced smile, a step backward. These movements act like instructions. They show people where to push, how to provoke, which buttons control you. Most people never realize they are constantly signaling the exact method required to break them. Cold confidence closes those openings by refusing to leak emotional noise. A still face becomes unreadable. It doesn't freeze, it simplifies. No twitching, no overreaction, no performance. Just presence. The world pays attention to what it cannot interpret. And nothing is harder to interpret than a calm expression in a tense moment. A controlled tone becomes grounding, not robotic, not aggressive, just steady, measured. The kind of voice that doesn't speed up just because the world demands a faster answer. This gives the impression that you know exactly what you're doing, even when you're still deciding. A steady posture becomes a shield, not rigid-rooted, shoulders relaxed, movements deliberate, eyes focused. You're not announcing dominance, you're announcing that you cannot be moved by impulse. That alone changes how people treat you. When you hold this layer of perception, you stop broadcasting weakness. You stop offering people shortcuts into your mind. You stop showing them the map of your insecurities. You stop handing them instructions on how to defeat you. They're left waiting, guessing, interpreting, and guessing is where respect begins. The second layer is pace. Most people respond to pressure by speeding up. They speak faster, move faster, think faster, and in doing so, they lose control. Weakness rushes because weakness fears stillness. Stillness feels like vulnerability to those who are ruled by emotion. They try to escape silence because silence exposes how unprepared they are. Strength does the opposite. Strength slows down. Strength takes time. The more pressure it feels, the more deliberate it becomes. This confuses people. It breaks the rhythm they expect. They push, expecting you to push back. They escalate, expecting you to panic. But when you slow the interaction, when you pause, when you breathe, when you refuse to be rushed, the entire psychological dynamic reverses. A calm response forces others to confront their own noise. It highlights their lack of control. It reveals how reactive they are. Suddenly, they're the ones who seem unstable, emotional, insecure. You become the point of stability, and in any social dynamic, the stable figure becomes the unspoken leader. The third layer is focus. A confident mind is not scattered. It doesn't jump from insecurity to insecurity. It doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. It is aimed. Cold confidence is not about disengagement from life. It's about disengagement from disruption. Most people get pulled into anything that moves. An insult, a rumor, a tone, a facial expression, a delay, a disappointment. Their attention is open to any disturbance. This is why they're exhausted. This is why they're inconsistent. This is why they're easy to manipulate, not through force, but through distraction. Cold confidence narrows your focus. Your priorities stay intact. Your purpose stays untouched. Each moment filters through a simple question. Does this matter to my direction? If the answer is no, you don't engage. Not out of fear, not out of avoidance, but out of discipline. Your attention becomes your weapon, not a liability. When your mind is aimed, when your energy flows in one direction instead of 30, people feel the difference. They sense that you are not waiting for validation. You are not thrown off balance by minor turbulence. You are not emotionally for rent. This controlled focus makes you harder to manipulate, harder to provoke, harder to exploit. The world loses its power to distract you. The final layer is truth, not moral truth, but psychological truth. People trust what does not flinch. They respect what stays steady under weight. Humans have always been wired to follow resilience. It's the ancient instinct wired into every social structure. The calm figure is seen as capable, stable, and reliable. The frantic figure is seen as fragile. If you stay steady under stress, under conflict, under disappointment, you communicate something older than language: resilience. You show that adversity does not break you. You show that pressure does not define you. You show that chaos must negotiate with you before it enters your life. Nothing commands more respect than resilience, because resilience is rare. Anyone can talk. Anyone can perform. Anyone can pretend. But only a few maintain their internal order when everything else falls apart. Cold confidence does not beg for approval. It does not chase recognition. It does not negotiate its worth. It asserts itself without volume, not through force, but through consistency. Not through aggression, but through presence. That is why the world doesn't want you to learn this. A calm, steady, self-governed mind cannot be easily influenced. It does not depend on trends, reactions, or external validation. It becomes a psychological sovereign, independent of the emotional climate around it. A person who masters this becomes difficult to manipulate, because manipulation relies on triggering emotion. The calmer you remain, the fewer handles people have to pull. You become the man whose emotions serve him, not the man who serves his emotions. Cold confidence doesn't mean cold-heartedness. It means your emotions follow your judgment, not the moment. It means you choose your reactions with intention. It means you maintain your center even when the world tries to drag you off balance. When you reach this state, you stop living at the mercy of circumstance. You stop being controlled by the highs and lows of other people. You stop confusing noise with importance. You stop allowing every passerby to shape your mood, your thoughts, your behavior. Cold confidence is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of control. A quiet interior where clarity speaks louder than fear. A steady core where purpose overrules impulse. A resilient spirit where setbacks are processed, not dramatized. And once you hold all these layers together, people feel a shift when they're around you. They sense a boundary they cannot cross. They sense a mind they cannot shake. They sense a presence that doesn't bend for their expectations. Cold confidence is not about looking strong. It is about being unshakable. A man who carries this aura becomes someone others adjust themselves around, not someone who adjusts himself for others. Because in the end, the greatest advantage you can possess is not charm, force, intelligence, or charisma. It is composure. Composure is the silent crown of the powerful. Cold confidence rests on a series of laws that govern how power behaves in the quiet spaces between perception and reaction. The first law is the discipline of reacting slowly. Speed kills judgment. It blinds you, drags you into emotional traps, and forces you to answer on someone else's terms. When you slow your reactions, when you allow a moment to breathe before you respond, you regain clarity. You see motives more accurately, intentions more cleanly, and outcomes more strategically. A delayed reaction is not hesitation. It is controlled calculation, and it sharpens every decision you make. The second law is the guarding of your emotional face. Humans are experts at reading microsignals, even if they don't realize it consciously. Your expressions, your eyes, your jaw, the subtle shift of your mouth broadcasts the inner state of your mind far faster than your words can correct them. If your face collapses under pressure, you communicate defeat. If it tightens with fear, you communicate vulnerability. When you maintain a composed, neutral exterior, you deny others access to your internal battlefield. You protect your mind by refusing to let your emotions leak into your expression, and this controlled neutrality creates a psychological shield others cannot penetrate. The third law is allowing others to reveal themselves before you reveal anything of your own. The person who rushes to speak first usually exposes their intent, their anxiety, and their strategic position. When you allow others to fill the space, you gain information without surrendering anything. You see their insecurities, their ambitions, their doubts, and the angles they're trying to play. Silence becomes a form of reconnaissance, and patience becomes your hidden weapon. The one who exposes himself first always gives up leverage. The one who waits accumulates it. The fourth law is the understanding that silence bends people. Most individuals cannot tolerate it. They interpret silence as disapproval, mystery, authority, or judgment. This internal discomfort pushes them to fill the empty space with explanations, rationalizations, or confessions. When you resist the urge to interrupt or soften a silence, you watch others reveal more than they intended. Silence makes people negotiate with their own mind, and in that negotiation, they often collapse their own position without you lifting a finger. When you let silence do the work, you conserve energy while gaining influence. The fifth law is maintaining your frame under pressure. A frame is your mental position, your inner belief about the reality of a situation. When pressure rises, most people abandon their frame and adopt the emotional tempo of the person confronting them. They become reactive instead of grounded. But the strongest presence is not the one that yells, intimidates, or imposes physical force. It is the one that refuses to be moved internally, no matter how loud the situation becomes externally. When your internal state remains steady, you become the psychological anchor, and the other person becomes the one who unconsciously adapts to you. The sixth law is detaching from the opinions of others. Confidence disintegrates the moment it relies on approval, permission, or external validation. The world can sense when a man needs acceptance. It can also sense when a man is guided by his own standards. Cold confidence endures because it is rooted in self-direction, not in applause. When you detach from the fear of what others think, you stop negotiating your worth. You stop adjusting your behavior to fit expectations. You stop being predictable. And unpredictability is one of the strongest forms of power. The seventh law is the discipline to observe before you move. Knowledge is only the beginning of influence. Understanding is the true source of control. When you observe first people, patterns, motives, dynamics, you accumulate insight that others overlook. You see the structure of a situation instead of reacting to its surface. Observation gives you time, perspective, and leverage. It lets you intervene at the right moment instead of rushing into the wrong one. The man who watches first and acts second rarely has to act twice. These laws are not suggestions or philosophical ideals. They are the mechanics of psychological leverage, the invisible gears behind confidence that cannot be manipulated or shaken. When you integrate them into your behavior, the world stops dragging you into its chaos and begins adjusting itself to your pace. You stop being reactive and become deliberate. You stop being predictable and become enigmatic. You stop being controlled and become unmovable. Cold confidence is not a mask, it is a discipline, and the men who master it become the silent centers of gravity in every room they enter. Cold confidence isn't something you stumble into, and it isn't a gift handed to the lucky or the charismatic. It is forged slowly, in the quiet moments when you choose discipline over impulse, composure over reaction, and intention over noise. It grows each time you resist the urge to defend yourself. each time you refuse to be dragged into someone else's emotional weather, each time you pause when your instincts scream for speed. It is shaped by the choices no one sees when you steady your breath instead of breaking, when you hold your expression instead of revealing doubt, when you move only after you fully understand the terrain. It is the strength to maintain your position even when the environment trembles around you, when people try to provoke you, when circumstances demand panic. Cold confidence is not about being frozen. It's about being unshakable. The world will always push, test, and challenge, but the man who remains centered becomes a force the world cannot easily influence. Silence becomes not emptiness, but presence. Stillness becomes not passivity, but authority. The man with cold confidence does not dominate through aggression or spectacle. He doesn't need to convince, perform, or announce. He dominates through gravity, the invisible pull of someone who is fully anchored within himself. People sense it. They adjust to it. They step more carefully around it, because a man who cannot be moved forces everyone else to question their own footing, and that alone shifts the balance of power. In the end, power does not emerge from volume, theatrics, or frantic displays of strength. Real power rises from the quiet mind, steady, deliberate, self-contained. The mind that cannot be manipulated, coerced, or shaken becomes the mind others gravitate toward, and the mind they fear to challenge. Cold confidence isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It simply endures.